Hey everybody, I'm Amy,
And I'm Paul.
and welcome to the Comics Hall. This
Hello.
is this is very strange for us. I mean, we're back to form after 2 straight weeks of events. We had Princess Week
Yes.
and then we had our Star Wars Week, but we are back to New Comic Book Day, which is in itself is an event every single week. We are
Yep.
joined by our fantastic moderator today.
Hello, everybody.
Rob,
I'll
that's
be in the
you.
chats with you, passing on questions and hanging out.
Excellent. And as always, Rob has also picked up the books that we checked out this week. So if you guys have any questions for him in particular, you can also drop those his way. Today is Wednesday, May 12th, a fantastic week for comics. We've got so much stuff to cover for you, but we're going to start off with a little bit of comic book news that you might have missed from the last week. Because, we had the crazy events going on. So we got some news to catch up for with
Sure
you guys.
do.
So first up, Marvel Comics has released new information about the Trial of Magneto, which you might have heard a little bit about because we did get a teaser earlier in the week by John Romita Jr. Of course, he is making his return to Marvel, so that was a pretty big deal to have that promotional artwork. But now we have information about the series and how it will be playing out. It is going to be an upcoming mini-series spinning out of this summer's Hellfire Gala from the X-Men universe, and it will be a 5-issue series written by Leah Williams, who is currently doing the X Factor series, with artwork, by Lucas Wernick. And this is, I mean, we don't know why Magneto is being put on trial. It's been speculated that it is a murder that occurs at the gala, but we don't have much more information than
Weird.
that because there's going to be a lot of stuff going on at that gala, especially people's fantastic outfits. But we know that some of you guys in the local comic society have had some interesting fan theories about what Magneto might be getting framed for. So that'll be
Oh,
fun,
yes.
exciting, unfortunate for him.
hmm
But you can check that out this summer when it goes on sale on August 18th, online and in your local comic book store.
Hope they got a plastic casket, which is, just thinking about it, it's a pretty sick band name, Amy. um,
Dibs.
Damn, I didn't call dibs. All right, everyone, moving it on to something I'm sure all of you probably caught. Sony has released a trailer for the Venom sequel, Let There Be Carnage. Tom Hardy returns as Eddie Brock, who seems to be adjusting to life with his, lovely and trusty symbiote. The trailer also features a voiceover from Woody Harrelson as Cletus Cassidy, a serial killer who has become bonded to the symbiote Carnage. They also switched up a little bit of the original lore there. I actually really do enjoy how they had kind of changed it up, so I'm really excited to see Woody Harrelson bring a lot of that to the screen. So Let There Be Carnage plays up the odd couple angle with humor in the clips, so fans can look forward to a fun symbiote romp through New York when the film releases on September 24th later this year. Very excited. Very, very excited for that film. That whole breakfast scene, I'm not going to spoil much of it. I mean, it is a trailer. That whole breakfast scene, I would watch just a whole movie of that.
Yeah, very bromance, very odd couple vibes going on there.
Delicious.
Very fun, and as I've noted on our new at Sideshow show every 9 a.m. Monday through Friday, I have a lot of friends who aren't really interested in Marvel comics or they're very casual MCU dabblers, but they
Right.
really liked the dynamic of Venom and Eddie, and so they are very excited to see the return of that for
Yeah.
Let There Be Carnage, which I think is fantastic. I mean, whatever draws you towards these characters, that's great. But I love that they have no deep interest in Marvel, but they're like, I like this weird guy and his weird goop.
It's it's great because, Donny Cates. I mean, Donny Cates wasn't the first to bring the comedy aspect into Venom by any means, but he's been the newest to do it, and I like to see that they're steering into that because Venom can also be like that real serious shadow or in your brain, and I'm glad they're kind of steering away from that. And it's like the humorous aspect of Venom.
Yeah, and I believe there was a one sheet poster they teased for that, and it had some similarities to a Ryan Stegman Venom piece from their
Oh, I didn't see
collaboration
that.
together. It was from the mouth of Carnage, looking at
hmm
Venom. So, be
Teasing
curious to
a
see.
teasing a third villain.
Ooh,
Um, I'll it might rhyme with dull, maybe, which
maybe.
maybe it's null, but we don't know that for sure.
But what we do know for sure is personally my favorite piece of comic book news from this week. According to Deadline, Legendary has closed a deal for Regina King to direct and produce an adaptation of Image's Bitterroot. Now, this was not news. We already knew that Ryan Coogler was on, or the adaptation itself is not news, but the edition of Regina King is fantastic. But Ryan Coogler is also set to produce this project. It is, of course, based on the Eisner-winning Image Comics series by David F. Walker, Sanford Green, and Chuck Brown. It takes place in the Harlem Renaissance in 1924, where the fractured Sangerier family hunt and cure monsters that take over the souls of hateful, prejudiced humans. There's no release date or casting news for the movie at this time, but fans can pick up the first 2 volumes of Bitterroot now from Image Comics and Comixology. And you guys know, if you've watched this show, how much I love that book. It is one of the best supernatural fantasy stories going on right now. The wait may be a little bit longer than most in between issues lately, but that is because the team is putting all their hard work into this story, and it is just a fantastic tale of historical significance and just a lot of fun imaginative fantasy elements with real world racism and drama as the kind of crux of this supernatural story.
Oh
I
yeah,
love it.
we've
I'm
been
so
telling
excited.
you on the Comics Hall, do not sleep on this book. That was like one of the first things we did, everyone. So,
I think they're up to issue 13 now. I think.
really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there were 13 issues so far, and then there was the Red Summer special, and I know that the next trade
Oh, right.
paperback will collect this arc, and then it will collect the Red Summer special, which is kind of
'Cause it was what? It wasn't it. You had talked about this previously. It was like teased so long ago at like a Comic Con or a New York Con, right?
yeah, it was. I want to say it was teased at Image Expo in like 2017 or
Hmm.
so, with a beautiful, beautiful concept
Oh
piece
yeah.
by Sanford. But yeah, if you love the 1920s, I mean, it's just such a stylish and fun book, and I really love the perspective they take on kind of building their own monster lore. In this series. So, anyways,
Yeah.
I am all in for the adaptation. It
Very
sounds like it's
excited.
gonna be fantastic. So
Very excited.
that is our comic book news for the day. Just a couple short and sweet bites for you guys as we dive in now to our weekly haul. Welcome back to the weekly haul. I mean, I hope everybody
Finally.
picked up their books this week, especially because there were some interesting rules for pickup for some people's books, but I'm not going to go into that this week. We do have a pick of the week that is kind of the big headliner. We know that DC books actually come out on Tuesdays now, so
Mhm.
bear with us if you've already picked this up, but if you're getting your books on Wednesday, you're going to want to check out the DC Festival of Heroes #1 shot. This is a 100-page special. This is the Asian superhero celebration.
Mhm.
This is the most recent, I believe, of DC's big anthologies. The last one we saw was, of course, Love is a Battlefield for
Mhm.
almost for the 4th of July, for Valentine's
There
Day,
you
you
go.
know. Wrong holiday.
So close.
So this is DC Festival of Heroes. This is something that Paul and I both picked up this week. I only pulled a select few of the names for the artists, writers, colorists,
Mhm.
and letterers because there are like 10 different stories in this book. Just a massive, massive collection, plus a ton of artists contributing amazing pinups. I'm sure
Yeah.
Paul's checking the math right now, but
Yeah, I've
some
got
of
it. I've got it right
just
here.
some of the writers we have
Mhm.
include Mariko Tamaki, Ram V, Dustin Nguyen, Greg Pak, Alyssa Wong, Jean Lewin Yang, and more. We've got art by Marcus To, Trung Lei Nguyen, Audrey Mock, Bernard Chang, Marcio Takara, and more. And then we've got colors by Sunny Go, Rain Barreto, Sebastian Cheng, and more, with
Mhm.
letters by Janice Chang, Aditya Bidikar, Steve Wands, and more. There's so many. I mean, we could sit here for the next 20 minutes, I think, discussing
Yeah.
the creative teams. But not only is it an Asian superhero celebration, it is a celebration of incredible Asian talent
Mhm.
in the comic book industry, tackling some amazing characters. This is just such a fun it's just a fun. I love these anthology outputs that DC has been doing, not only to highlight their characters, but
Yeah.
also the creators that they've got in their lineup.
Right. No, and it's been so much fun. And the the good thing about all of these particular stories is, when after you read the first, the second one, the third one, there are so many stories. And if maybe the first one doesn't really hit you, if it's going to do anything, it's going to introduce you to a character that you may not know exists in the ever expanding DC Omniverse. It is the Omniverse now. I have to remember that. So it is the Omniverse. There are so many characters that, I mean, I completely understand. Like, there's no way that you can get all of these characters in front of everyone's eyes all of the time. So to see some of, some characters here, like Connor Hawk, you know, who's been Arsenal, he's been Green Arrow, he's been Speedy, he's been different people all throughout, but he's usually in the Green Arrow family, with oh, it's Kanan Kong
Kong Kinan,
Kong Kanan. Thank you.
who is
Uh,
the
the,
new
the
Superman.
new Superman. That's a story that we have written by Greg Pak. I'm sorry. It's just such a fun mix of so many generations of DC Comics and getting to see them on the same page and interacting. It's really great. I mean, if you guys can pull anything from this, I mean, I mean, we don't like to aim these pick of the weeks, which we will get into, but we do a very light aim of them.
Hmm.
I guess maybe we can kind of kick that off real fast as far as accessibility goes, Amy, which is what because AIM, everyone, is an acronym. Speaking of Green Arrow,
And we'll refresh everybody on that
yes,
when
we
we
will.
drill down into the hard aim segment because it's been a couple weeks. You might have forgotten.
Yeah.
But in terms of accessibility, I'll say because I'm our resident extremely DC casual reader. I have a passing familiarity with a lot of these characters, but I
Oh
think
yeah.
especially a couple of these stories do a fantastic job of introducing you to the character as they have an inner monologue about themselves and their identity, and there's a lot of celebration of who they are, but also um, kind of letting you know who they are.
Hmm.
So I found that especially notable with the Cassandra Kane story, reminding people that she was trained as an expert assassin and kind of not encouraged to learn to speak, and so she was mute for a while. And so it's that one's a Mariko Tamaki story, just a really nice kind of exploration of how she views words and how she's learning to use them in her own identity. The Damian Wayne story, especially as well, gave you this great because he's like, I'm Damian Wayne, and I'm considered the son of Batman, but I'm
It's
also the son of the demon, and like, so you get a nice
my
introduction to
grandfather
these
is evil.
characters. Yeah, there's a little bit of that too. But a lot of it, especially with the younger generations of characters that are included in this,
Hmm.
I think it's extremely accessible. And this is the first appearance, so if you're, we need a title card for a first appearance alert. I think. Put that in the notes for next time. But a first appearance of a brand new DC character. This is we've got the introduction of the Monkey Prince in this story by
Yes.
Jean Lewin Yang and Bernard
Hmm.
Chang, in which the Monkey Prince, who is a kind of based on the character in Chinese folklore, he doesn't like superheroes very much, but he ends up teaming up with Shazam to stop Dr. Sivana. And so that is a brand new story, brand new
Yes.
character alert. So even that, if you don't have any familiarity with the character, good news. No one else does
Boom.
either before this book. So
Accessible as heck.
I really liked it. And in between all the stories, which are varying lengths, I think the longest of any story is about 8 or
Hmm.
10 pages. We've got a couple of 4 pagers. There's beautiful pinups as well
Yeah. Oh,
in between.
beautiful. Yeah, some of them are so great, and I do love. Again, there are so many of these characters. Like I've been reading TC for, you know, the nth metal amount of years. I don't know how many how long I've been reading DC, but a lot of these characters, like I still have only read them as C-list characters in other stories, and so to see them sort of, get a to see them at the forefront of some of these writers' minds and some of these artists, pencils or whatever digital artists use. I'm not really familiar, but to see whatever they use, and how they bring some of these characters to light. It's really interesting. There's a particular story in here that is actually by Amy Chu, and it's called The Festival of Heroes, which sort of, I feel like, sets the tone for what this book is and what this book wants to say. Um,
Hmm.
it's it's an interesting take on how people see the Asian community, specifically different parts of the Asian community, and how uh, people who unfortunately see the Asian community in a negative light are the real minority, and they do such a beautiful job of crafting that story in the realm of superheroes, and it's beautifully told and it's beautifully drawn. It's Marcio Takara is the
I
artist, and again,
love I love Marcio
yeah,
Takara.
it's so beautiful and it's so fun. Also has my favorite, like one of my favorite dynamics is Katana with Soul Taker. I've always loved that because the Justice League has repeatedly said, like, we'll take anyone because we believe that, justice lives not just in black and white, but in gray areas and stuff. And they're like, no, she's crazy because she just walks around and talks to her sword because the sword houses the soul of her husband. And so she just talks to it. And I've always loved Katana, and she's sort of getting a resurgence in modern DC Comics. She had a lot actually to do in Marika Tamaki's detective comics that she's writing right now as well. I mean, there's so much. There's so much about this book to love.
And there's a great inclusion at the back, not only a page for resources and what you can do to stop Asian hate, because this did come out at a very poignant time in our cultural moment, but there's also introductory character bios to all of the characters featured in the book. And I think one of my other favorite elements that you kind of touched on in Festival of Heroes, but throughout a lot of the stories, food is a binding element with these
Yes.
stories. And I mean, the food always looks delicious. I mean, I'm thinking especially, I mean, it's not quite Studio Ghibli levels because that has the advantage of being animated, but the description and the love and reverence and the sharing of food is an important part of this as
Right.
well. So I think that's just a really nice part of this. It's just I am so impressed by the output of these anthologies, and I know that $9.99 looks like a really scary price point, but it is 100 pages of comics. These look like bona fide like magazines. They just have a nice like it's so cool to go in, pick up a book that has a spine to it. Really, it's not just staples. It's a bound book, and it's got the glossy cover to it, and they're just really fun outings. And oh my God, what month is it? It's May. In June, we're going to get Pride Month anthologies from both Marvel and DC, but especially in the DC format, I've been exceptionally impressed
Yeah. And
by those
I,
stories they're
I
putting
can
out.
say going out on a limb because I am much more comfortable making an idiot of myself and being wrong. If you are to pick up one of these oversized 100-page books, make it this one. I've read mostly all of them, starting with like Cybernetic Summer, which I think was released in June. I don't think I've missed one. This is by far the like one of the best looking, some of the best teams. Also sheds a light on some of the some of the characters that we don't normally get to see a whole bunch, and it's really interesting. It's so fun, I think, to see, and you guys will see it when you get to Festival of Heroes, to see the Justice League in like the back of the pack, and like not at the forefront. It's kind of a trick on the eye a little bit because you're not used to seeing that. You're used to seeing the Trinity, right up front. So it's just really cool. It's a really fun book. Also, of course, I love that Green Lantern story. I've always loved a good Green Lantern story.
Hmm.
But yeah, I will say if there's one of these to pick up, it's definitely Festival of Heroes. It's so good, so good.
All right, it looks like we've got a question coming in from the audience. Rob, do you want to pass that along to us?
Sure. Tenchi Mazaki over in our Facebook group asked, who are Amy and Paul's favorite Asian descent DC characters?
All
Oh,
right.
nice. Amy, do you want to tackle this first? You want me to go?
I'll let you take the lead because you are our DC man about town.
Yeah, my answer is easy. Ryan Choi, the Atom. I love, 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 love. He's my favorite version of the Atom. He is, no, like he's even. So I've always okay. Let me explain this. The reason I've always liked Ryan Choi specifically is sort of playing on what I just said in a second. Is that he noticeably never ever feels like he has to be the smartest person in the room, and he's always very, very quiet and is not afraid of making mistakes. We've seen that in, a multitude of Justice League stories. I mean, we got him in Scott Snyder's Justice League stories, like he was the Atom. That's sort of what solidified that for me. But I mean, in short, it would be Ryan Choi who is the Atom. I don't want to get um, too into it. Ray Palmer's fantastic. No disrespect to any of the Palmer stands out there, but Ryan Choi is my Atom for sure.
And Ryan Choi is included in this
He
anthology.
is,
He is
yeah.
in.
He's towards the back end of this 100-page. He's headlining, if you will.
I'm gonna have to go with. I have two different answers because again, I'm not super versed in DC. So one of my answers, I feel like I have to qualify it a little bit. I really like Katana, but from what
Oh,
I know of her from both Suicide Squad and DC Superhero Girls. So I know that that's not 100%. I mean, depending
Nice.
on your feelings, that's not like critical comic book canon and backstory, but I really like the way that she's portrayed in DC Superhero Girls. But I think in terms of newer characters, I really like Kong Kinan and the Justice League that they introduced, and I think it's fun to have those kind of cockier younger heroes stepping in and taking on mantles. I'm a big fan of like legacy style characters, and I know he's not one to one legacy with Superman, but just the introduction of him and that kind of generation of his own Justice League, I really enjoy so far.
Yeah, I do always love. I mean, I don't know if how far a lot of people got into Kong Kanon's new Superman story. I think I got a few issues in, but one of the telling aspects is Superman loves him. He absolutely loves Clark Kent loves him, and it's because he's just like, I wish I had that kid's confidence. He is so confident, and I love Kong Kanon so much. He's such a fun character.
Yeah, especially when you think of Clark Kent as Superman and you think of the bashful farm boy from Smallville, and it's just like, no, now we've got a teenager who knows he's hot stuff.
Yeah, he's so good.
So I,
He's
I
always
like
written
I
so
like
well.
those kinds of characters. So thank you, Tenchi, for the question. That was fantastic, and I encourage everybody to pick up this. This is, I mean, it's our
So
pick of the
good.
week, and we don't just throw that term around lightly
We don't.
because we
No.
got so many other segments we could choose, but we wanted to make it a pick of the week. But up next, we do have our AIM segment, the return of a fan favorite, of course, because this is where we get into some of the books that we've been reading. And we're going to refresh you guys really quickly on what AIM stands for. This is our own patented, super top secret, except not really, acronym for the Comics Hall because we don't like numerical grades. Numbers are scary, not only because we can't do math very well, but also because numbers are very, very, very subjective. So we like
Yep.
to dial it into more qualitative assessment of the comics that'll give you the information you need to make an informed purchase. So the A in AIM stands for accessibility. How easy is this book to grab and read, both in terms of finding it? Where are you going to find it? How easy is it going to be? Is it already sold out? Is there a problem getting this book? What is going on? But also, how many other things do you have to have read? How many obstacles do you have to overcome in order to dive into this particular story? In terms of I, that is the interest. What is this book about and who would like it? And are there any other similar books on the shelves that you might already be reading that would persuade you in this direction? And then, of course, M is everybody's favorite. This is money or monetary investment. How much does it cost? I know we don't like numbers, but we like to break it down for you how many pages you are getting for what you are spending, because that is about the only math we can handle on Wednesdays. But we also want to
100%.
let you know if for some reason there's a massive price spike, like this week's DC Festival of Superheroes, 100 pages, $10. That kind of math. What are you
Yeah.
getting for your hard-earned? I was gonna make some money joke like Monopoly dollars, but that it didn't it didn't go all the way
Ducats?
through.
Ducats is money, right?
Oh my goodness! In a Shakespearean sense, it is
Oh, I thought it's just like little duck coins. Is it not? I don't know.
not so much. But Paul, do you want to take it away with our first aim of the week? Well, and welcome back to the aim segment after 2 whole weeks. I mean, this is
Yeah, it's been a
our first
minute.
aim of May.
First aim of May. All right, everyone. So, the first book that I am going to be aiming for everyone is Peter Parker, The Amazing Shutterbug, which is a one off spin off story within the Heroes Reborn event, universe, whatever you want to classify it as. Peter Parker, The Amazing Shutterbug, number one. As far as I know, I believe it's either one of one or one of three, but I think it's only. Oh no, this is a one shot. Actually, I'm sorry. So there will not be another one. So you can just pick this up and enjoy it. Honestly, I have not. So I'm gonna jump right into the aim in a second. But this is written by Mark Bernardin, art by Rafael de la Torre, and Scott Hanna on inks and colors. Now, this was an interesting story. So, jumping right into the aim of this, the accessibility, Heroes Reborn is all over the wall, wherever you are, whatever your shop is. So, you should be able to find this, and it's one variant pretty easily. Um, Now, how easy is it to pick up and read? Honestly, if you know anything about Spider-Man, like anything at all, um, I think you're good. You
Mhm.
don't even have to. I'm gonna
Can he
be
swing from a web?
I thought you were doing like a Dr. Seuss bit. Come on, Amy.
Oh no, I was gonna do the theme song, but then I kind of got Spider Pig in my brain as well.
I can play the is it the Amazing Spider-Man 2 when the lady's playing it outside the outside the bus? So if you know relatively anything about Spider-Man and his origin story from any of the Spider-Men's movies that we've gotten, you're good. Honestly, you don't even need to have read any of the Heroes Reborn stuff, because I haven't. I've been moving, and this is the first part of Heroes Reborn that I have gotten to read. And it's a great, great entry. And it's sort of, in the very opening page of this, it sort of simplifies and really condenses everything you need to know about what Heroes Reborn is in a nutshell. So you're good. If you pick this up, you're fine. If you're a Spider-Man fan, definitely pick this up. Now, as far as interest goes, sort of pulling it from the last segment, if you're a Spider-Man fan, pick this up. You're really going to enjoy this. If you like, Elseworlds tales, what if stories, this is a great, great story for that. I will say, I know Rob Coacher, who's our incredible moderator, also read this, and I think our jaw dropped at probably the same page. There is one page on here that is legitimately terrifying, and it's so sad. Well, not maybe not terrifying. Terrifying is wrong. It's very sad. It takes a particular trope and turns it on its head. Um, it's fascinating, and it's Mark Bernardin does a really good job here of just capturing that Peter Parker voice. This is a universe essentially where Peter Parker was never bit by the radioactive spider, and he was never turned into the Amazing Spider-Man. But also in that, his Uncle Ben is still alive. Aunt May is still there. He's in college and he's thriving, and that's where you're dropped into with this story. And it's really interesting, but also uncomfortable to see Peter Parker so happy. And I think as Spider-Man fans, like if you've read any, I'm a casual Spider-Man fan. I've read couple events, couple of things he's done, but I don't know everything about Spider-Man. But it's still with Spider-Man and Peter Parker, there's always that like looming anchor over his head, just waiting for the axe to drop at any moment. Like with Clark Kent. Like, I mean, with any good hero, with Batman, anyone, any hero, it's like nothing's gonna last too long. And so this takes Peter Parker and puts some boots on the ground. It's really good. It's really well told, I'd say. And Raphael De La Torre does a great job, I feel, of sort of capturing because you do see a lot of New York and how busy New York is. He does that really well. I think we kind of take that for granted when we read particular comics of capturing like a city and its essence, especially a known city and a very known essence, something like New York. And De La Torre does a great job. Great, great, great job of doing that. And as far as the monetary investment goes here, it's $4.99, which is pretty standard cost right now for most of these Heroes Reborn books. I think that's probably going to be standard across the board. I don't know, Amy, are you reading any of the other ones?
The tie-ins that I'm reading haven't come out yet. I'm going to be reading the Young Squadron and um, the whatever the title for the Luke Cage one is, where he's the police commissioner. So I
Oh, right,
haven't
right, right, right.
haven't had a chance to get those yet, but I believe it is. I mean, I know that the event title itself is 4.99, so
Yeah.
it'll probably be standard.
Yeah, looking at all of because today Heroes Reborn 2 came out,
Mhm.
and Hyperion and the Imperial Guard #1, they're all 4.99. So it's probably going to be 4.99 across the board. But not too bad. Peter Parker, The Amazing Shutterbug it's a pretty good, fun read. I mean, it's not fun. I'm not going to say that it's like you're going to be smiling
Your
through it.
definition of fun is flexible.
Yes, can't
Rob
spell
is profusely shaking his head backstage.
can't spell fun. No, you can't spell flexible without fun if you don't think about it too hard. So Peter Parker, The Amazing Shutterbug #1 during the Heroes Reborn event. Go pick it up. Honestly, it's really fun. It's a really I hate to say it, but it's a quirky, fun Peter Parker what if story. It's really good. I promise.
Yeah.
Time.
Thank you. Oh, I mean, I think to the point of the books being 4.99, it's because um not only are they one shots, and I think some of the one shots especially are oversized, but it's a line wide event. It's not one of these ones where your Thor title is going to be crossing over into this, because this is a totally new universe in
Right.
which all the heroes' stories have changed. So there's not going to be a lot of tie-in titles. There are new
Hmm.
titles spinning out of the event, so I think most of them are probably going to go for that 4.99 range. Speaking of a 4.99 thing that spins out of another Marvel thing, great segue, Amy. I am covering
Nice.
X-Corp #1 from Marvel Comics today. This is the latest entry in the Reign of X lineup, which of course is spinning out of Dawn of X, which of course came out of Hoxpox, all a part of Jonathan Hickman's grand design for the X-Men, not to be confused with X-Men Grand Design, which is a totally separate series. Anyways, um, wow, the X-Men are all over the place. This is written by Teenie Howard with art by Alberto Foce, colors by Sunny Go, and letters by Clayton Cowles. And the cover, that cover is a Michael Cho cover. Fantastic. Love, love, love those minimalist color designs. And he's done all of those covers so far. I think they've had 4 issues solicited with that really fun style. And you can see that the issue number is actually listed as milligram, because it is in reference to a plot point that actually hasn't been super followed up on, except out in Marauders, I believe, with the Hellfire Trading Co. But the
Mm.
life-giving and life-saving drugs that the X-Men have been able to manufacture from the Krakoan portal plants, and the way that they've been able to provide that to humanity for a boon. And as Xavier says in the issue, the first offering was to kind of buy us our freedom. Now we've got the currency to spend on other things that we need. So this is actually, I mean, it's interesting. I wouldn't normally consider the corporate drama genre to be an X-Men related title, but this is a very, very robust book. I'm going to jump to the M really quick because I mentioned it was 4.99. This is a 44-page story.
Damn.
This book is a thick boy. It is just, I was reading it. I was like, this is a
If
really long story,
mhm.
but it
if
really lays a lot of
if
groundwork.
this book was a dog, it'd be a corgi.
Yes, very, very, very. I mean, but it's not super fluffy. I wouldn't say there's a lot of extra fluff around here, but this is a
Cool
big
dog.
story. It's a big story. So in terms of accessibility, while it is a new #1, it is best served by some knowledge of what's going on with the X-Men. If this is the first time that you've read an X-Men book in a long time, I would not recommend this to you, because you are not going to recognize these X-Men, especially seeing them all in business suits. But if you at least, even if you read Hoxpox but you kind of trailed off, as long as you have an understanding that the X-Men are doing really well for themselves, then you can go into this book. As a part of the Reign of X, this means it is coming off of not only Dawn, but it's coming out of Ten of Swords and all of those kind of progressed titles, and it is in the latest wave along with Way of X, which is kind of one of the latest debuts. And it will be heading into the Hellfire Gala, so if you guys are looking forward to the Hellfire Gala, this might be required reading ahead of that. I will say, in terms, this is a little bit interest, but a little accessibility. It features 3 key mutants, actually, I'd say 4, who really haven't had a place in the main X-Men lineup. So if you are a fan of Monet St. Croix, who was in the Storm giant-sized X-Men, and then Warren Worthington III, Jamie Madrox, and Trinary, coming back from Tom Taylor's X-Men Red. If you are a fan of Trinary, the hacker mutant who can communicate with technology, they are kind of the big 4 of this book, and it is very interesting to see that they have not otherwise really had a place in most of the other X-Men stories. I mean, you can pinpoint where Emma Frost is and Kate Pryde, and we've got Rogue and Gambit and Richter for Excalibur and all these different characters, but these 4 have really not been super prominent. So it is cool to see them. And it is pretty fun to see Jamie Madrox using his multiple man powers as he funds an entire, or he runs an entire science laboratory with all of his dupes. Which is a
Nice.
lot of fun. So again, in terms of interest, if you are reading Reign of X and you've done all the titles up through as recently Way of X, you're really going to want to check this one out. That is, I think, the main draw of this title. Again, it's not your introduction to X-Men class. It's a lot of fun in terms of, and I think, again, fun is not quite the right word. It's not a happy, fun, romp, like jaunty book, but it's if you like that kind of corporate drama and businessmen butting heads, we've got Monet and Warren as the heads of X-Corp, and they have very different ideas about how to conduct business and how to announce themselves to the world, because as we know, building up towards this summer's Hellfire Gala, this is where the X-Men are really going to reveal themselves and their plans to the world. And so it all plays into that plan. And how do we want to go in subtly and let our work speak for itself, or do we want to say we're here, we're mutants, we're as in the first page, the potential tagline for X-Corp is we're simply superior because they're homo superior. Are they simply superior? Do they just show up and let everybody know that? So it's a very interesting little drama, very, very big first issue. I think kind of larger than most of the other first issues. And this might be weird if you're a fan of seeing what goes on at Roxxon, or for DC, if you're a fan of LexCorp, if you like the corporate side of superhero books, definitely check that out. And we do have an article on our website that is the top 10 superhero corporations, obviously published a long time before X-Corp came to being, but if you are a fan of those types of things, I think you're going to enjoy X-Corp #1 this week. So, and then I covered the M, so we're good. That is the aim for X-Corp #1 from Marvel Comics.
The only aspect of like corporate superhero life that I'm really curious about is the Christmas parties. Like how crazy those. Could you imagine if Multiple Man abused his mutant power and has now been given like 80 drink tickets?
See, I
it
was
can
thinking
happen.
getting extra Christmas gifts, but
but it's the same name. But it's like you just got to have 80 different, I guess,
Yeah, 'cause
mustache disguises.
if he duplicates himself before he gets like the stamp or the wristband, I mean, he's golden. But then when he reabsorbs all of them, he reabsorbs the cumulative
The
impact
alcohol.
of because that's
Yeah,
that,
then you
I
just
mean,
got to be drunk forever. 'Cause
without
that's
giving
the-
that away, that's a plot point, is he needs information, and so if he
Oh, that's cool.
reabsorbs, but if they get destroyed before he reabsorbs them, he doesn't have that information. So either they're all going to get drunk and he's got to destroy all of his clones, or he's just, like you said, going to be drunk forever.
Yeah,
I don't think the X-Men necessarily need a Christmas party, though, because from what I've seen of Krakoa, it's just like all party all the time. I mean,
That's
unless
well,
you're on the quiet council.
that's true. They are not having a good time all the time. That looks awesome. I'm really excited to pick this up. This is just another. We had talked about this a little bit. I mean, let's see, do we have time for my rantings?
Sure. We got a couple minutes.
That between me, you, and Rob, we've read quite a bit of Jonathan Hickman, who obviously did not write this particular book. I promise everyone, I'm getting to it. But he has sort of kicked off this world and this universe of new X-Men within the world of Krakoa. He does a really great job of sort of having no stone unturned in a universe that he really wants to play in, and he's giving writers like everyone on this X-Corp book and all of everything from Fallen Angels to Marauders, like every part of this universe is to be fleshed out, and to see like a corporate X-Men book is, I mean, again, I can't really speak to it. Amy, you've been reading X-Men a little longer than me. Like I never thought I'd say that in a sentence, a corporate X-Men book.
Oh, absolutely not. No, I mean, it's such a strange intersection of, like, when you think of who the X-Men are and people think, oh, the X-Men are the underdogs. The underdogs don't own billion-dollar corporations that humans rely on now for life-saving medicine. It's just
Yeah.
amazing. And I want to say, just to add to Jonathan Hickman and the way he's revolutionized this universe, I don't think we'll ever see an X-Men book moving forward without one of those Hickman-style lore pages. I mean, the fact that we get to see email exchanges and just like dossiers that are debriefing, that are
redacted,
redacted, yeah, that are part of the story. I mean, I like the fact that it doesn't carry outside of the X-Men books, but it is such a revolutionary thing for Marvel Comics. It almost feels like multimedia, even though it's not. It's all part of the comic, but like to have chunks of prose in the comic, it adds a different experience. And I'd be curious to take a poll at some point, sometime, of our people who are reading the X-Men books. Does anyone just skip those pages? Do you
Oh,
skip
that's
the emails
interesting.
like, or
Yeah.
do you read those? I
Do you mean
mean,
like my normal emails or like in books?
I
Because yeah,
mean, get a little fight or flight reaction when you see those, but
yeah. Um, no, no, no. It's interesting. It's the same reason why, if I can totally, before we move on, tangent, like if anyone's played Skyrim out there or any games like those, why when you go to an entirely different village and you go into a random, house and you take a random book off and you open it up and it's like the local lore and songs of that village. And it's
Mhm.
like I didn't know, I didn't need this. But the fact that it's there for me is it's like the option of being able to read it. So and just like a game like that or like with these infographic pages that Hickman and obviously the incredible Teeny Howard and all the other people that have worked in the Hoxpox verse. We say Hoxpox because that's how this all sort of started. House of X, Powers of X. Those were the first two titles that Jonathan Hickman started this new X-Men verse with. But to see like no stone not unturned is so interesting, and it's something that like it made me interested in the X-Men. And to be honest, I never read the X-Men. I was not interested in them before this, and now it's like if you we were saying, Amy, it's like if you want to, you can just get lost in the
Mhm.
X-Men, like whatever area of the X-Men you want to, and it's exciting.
Yeah. It's fascinating, and to see how quickly that has happened in the last few
Yeah,
years. It's unbelievable. Now, yes, now we have a corporate X book.
finally. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Amy, that was X Core number one. Very, very stoked. So I'm going to take us on over to a simpler time. It's called Time. Time is in the book of the book that it's in the cover. It's called Time Before Time by Image Comics. Now this is plotted, I should say, by Declan Shalvey and written by Rory McConneville. I say that because this is sort of a brainchild of Rory and Declan, but Declan did a lot of the plotting for probably the next coming issues, and the words, you could say more of like quote unquote the day-to-day stuff was written by Rory and artist Joe Palmer and Chris O'Halloran on colors there. This is an this is a book that it was really sort of at the bottom of my list of things to read. Like it was one of those books like we all have them like, oh, it's cool. I like the team on this. I'll get to it when I get to it. And we try to always on the comics all, we look for number ones that we can give people because it's so much easier if this is your very, very first show with us. First of all, welcome. Hello.
Thanks for sticking around.
Thanks for sticking around. But if it's your first show, it's easier for you to walk into a shop confidently and say like, "Hey, this is this new number one," and I can go in confidently. So we try to pick as many number ones as possible, and so this is why I had picked this. I was not planning on reading this today. I was going to get to it in maybe a week or so, but I am so glad that I read it today. It is so good. It's really interesting. I know me and Rob had differing opinions on how we liked it, which is perfectly fine, which is the whole purpose of the medium of well of anything really. I mean, we enjoy it. I personally liked it. I had sort of so jumping right into the aim of it as far as accessibility goes. It's it's a true number one. You don't need to know anything at all going into this book. We call books true number ones, meaning you need no prerequisite reading to enjoy this book. There's nothing. How Amy was saying, like you probably should have an idea of some of the X-Men happenings before you go into X-Corp. Like that is not a true number one per se, but this is a true number one. You don't need to have read a comic book ever in your life to enjoy this book and completely understand. Everything you need to know is in this book. Now, how easy is it to find? It's a medium launch, I'd say. It's not, it's not cutting too heavy into the Image Comics marketing budget, but it is being promoted. It is on shelves, and there are two other variants for this. So
I
It,
also believe it was on Kickstarter, but there was like a special edition version of it that was
oh,
like from like it was like concept to finished book, but it did go to
interesting.
Kickstarter before it hit Image Comics.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Declan Shalvey has done previous Kickstarters that have gone to different publishers, majoritively Image, but yeah, that makes sense. That was completely off my radar, but thank you. Yeah, which I mean, it just goes to show, which is awesome as to why today it was being so praised because people have been excited for it, probably, I assume now for some time. So that actually tracks and makes a lot of sense. Um, well, so the story of this is fascinating. I'm not going to give you too much of it, but we follow our main character. Name is Tatsuyo, who works for what is called the Syndicate. And ultimately, what they do is they are in the year 2140, and they have a sort of illegal underground operation where they can sneak people in the year 2140 into different, they can time travel and take them away from 2140. But of course, you have to pay, and it's an organized crime sort of story. It's interesting, it's got like really, it just has a lot of different flavors of different properties that I really liked. I think it just sort of synced with me personally. It's got some like mob ties to it, which I really, really enjoy, which is some of the reason I also really like Shadow Doctor, that had come out by Aftershock. Very similar, where it's like it's based in something like this is like if we invented time travel, this would happen. Like this would eventually happen. I do believe like it's human nature, and I really just enjoy that aspect of it. Um, oh, and I'm sorry, I apologize. I've sort of switched into the interest of time before time. So uh, this is really interesting. I mean, it was pitched to me as like very similar to like Looper. It has some like Looper tendencies, but maybe not so much. I had joked before the show and I had said it's like if Stephen Moffat's Doctor Who run was on like HBO Max, and it was a lot darker. Like that's kind of how it would go. Or maybe even if Zack Snyder got a run at a Doctor Who episode. It's kind of dark and kind of gritty, but it's actually very well written, as Declan Shalvey and McConville tend to do. They're both fantastic writers. I really really enjoyed it. It's fun. There's a lot of reason. By the end of issue 1, there are definite reasons to come back to issue 2 and 3 to see how some of all of this sort of fleshes out. I I do like a book like in issue 1 here with In Time Before Time, that it doesn't show its hand, its complete hand. There's plenty of world and lore to be handed out to you as far in the world of in the realms of like information. Um, but it's also very well drawn. Joe Palmer does an excellent job also of, I should say, Joe Palmer and Chris O'Halloran, who worked very closely together on this particular book in getting each, because it jumps to different times within this book, maybe 3 or 4 different time set pieces, if you will. And each of them has a different color scheme, and that's really cool as well. I always love when a book does that. Like there's even some of that in DC in the Festival of Heroes book that I forgot to mention, but in the Catwoman story, the Romvi story, there's some really good use of color because friggin' Jordi Belair, of course. But I digress. I might need this time before time to go back in time, talk about Jordi Belair, and then come back. Um, but it's yeah, it's a really really fun story, and then sort of switching, ending here on the monetary investment. It's only 3.99, which is pretty standard for an Image Comics #1 story. I really really enjoyed it. I think if you are looking for like a new book, like sometimes all of your books are middle in the runs, they're 12s, 24s, and they're in the middle of everything, and you just need a #1, like a fresh kick in the brain. Um,
I think we could
uh,
all use one of those from time to time.
I agree. Yeah, same. I need one about every 30 minutes. So we can Yeah, I would recommend this. Time Before Time by Image Comics. Again, really fun book if you are a big time travel sort of time cop fan.
It's also fun, apparently, if you're a time cop.
Yes.
All right. So our final aim of this week is a number 2 issue, but I'm going to pull a Paul because if you guys have been following our saga of Haha, this is another excellent anthology series offered by Image Comics. I'm reviewing the Silver Coin number 2 by Image
Nice.
with writing by Kelly Thompson, the ever effervescent and fantabulous Kelly Thompson, with art, colors, and lettering by Michael Walsh. So if you guys tuned into our previous talk when we did Silver Coin number 1 as a pick of the week, this is a horror anthology series in the same vein as like a Twilight Zone type tale. Where the only connecting thread between these stories is the presence of a cursed silver coin that has an eyeball that can open up. That's pretty creepy. But this story has nothing to do with the previous issue, which was by Chip Zdarsky. Not even the way in which the coin was left at the end of Chip Zdarsky's story does this play into Kelly Thompson's. It's a totally independent story. And actually, where the silver coin was the centerpiece of Chip Zdarsky's story, this one is very interesting. It is more of an accent detail. It's not the crux of the story. This is called The Girls of Summer, and this is a 90s set story. Just a lot of fun. So in terms of accessibility, as I mentioned, again, it is a standalone. You could just pick up this number 2, be done with the rest of the series. You don't have to go in for 3 or 4, but those will also be by different writers, same artist, totally different stories. The next one is actually a home invasion story that is previewed at the end of this issue. But it is a complete standalone. You don't need to know anything about it. And I think that is what makes it an ultimate grab and go. In terms of interest, if you are a horror fan, welcome. So whereas the last story was a bit of a kind of a supernatural, almost a deal with the devil type horror, this is slasher. If you like slashers, this is your issue. I love slashers. I know I've gone on record as saying I'm a weenie for horror films, but like I love slashers because you kind of know you know what's gonna happen. People
Yeah,
are gonna
yeah.
get slashed.
Mhm.
But this is especially if you are a fan of Friday the 13th, the very controversial Sleepaway Camp, or films like You Might Be the Killer, which is actually a really fun, lesser known horror film that was spawned out of a Twitter thread about
Of
a
course it
friend
was.
it was about a friend calling someone else and saying like, hey, I'm at a summer camp and like I'm covered in blood, and the guy's like, well, you might be the killer. So anyways, totally different thing, but if you like those kinds of stories, also if you're a fan of 90s and 80s girl dramas like Heathers, I would say that this is Friday the 13th mixed with Heathers. Kelly Thompson
Very
doesn't buy it.
different worlds.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. Heathers is like a slasher film, except not really. Thompson doesn't reinvent the slasher genre, but I don't think anyone was asking her to reinvent the slasher. She does pay tribute to it without it becoming super tropey. That is always a risk when you're telling these types of stories, for having it be like, oh, okay, someone with a machete in the woods, you know what's going to happen. But it's a really nice, really briskly paced story. It's only about 22 pages in length total. It's about a 28-page book overall, but you get 22 pages of story. And I don't want to spoil anything for you because, again, it is just such a fast and engaging read. But there's a really cool way that Michael Walsh plays with the visuals. And the first page, I'll say, because we're a spoiler-free podcast as much as we can be, but the first page opens with a VHS of a slasher film. And so you know how you get that film grain on VHS, and you get the chromatic aberration where the blues and reds
Nice.
start to splinter on the image. There are other parts of this book that do take on that chromatic aberration later on, and it gives you this sense of like, am I watching a VHS or is this real life playing out? And I think it's a really brilliant use of the horror visuals. Michael Walsh's artwork, of course, also sings. It's just he's so good at these shadows and making these little girls seem. I mean, because when you're a kid at summer camp and you're like the nerd kid, the mean girls are the scariest things around.
Mhm.
And there are some really graphic pages towards the end. I will warn you that more than the Chip Zdarsky story, there's some straight up blood and guts in this one. Thank you, Paul. There is a really good panel that I like, and I can't tell you why I like it, but it's very much a coalescing of everything that happened in the book in a very disgusting tableau that reminds me of kind of the displays in Hannibal. If you've watched the Hannibal show.
Ah,
But that's all I'm gonna say. It's
okay.
great. I love it. This is just the perfect. I mean, it is a slasher. It is a '90s. It is Kelly Thompson. It is everything that I could have asked for, and I do love that the cover has some pink to it, where you're like, oh,
It's
it's kind of
got
girly.
it's got everything.
This comic has everything. But yeah, like I do like that the cover's got a little bit of that pink tinge because it's like, ooh, it's girly. It's not. It's very scary.
But
But
it's
this is.
not.
It's such a good comic. $3.99 in terms of
Nice.
M. Uh, it does feel a little shorter when compared with the Chip Zdarsky one, but that one
Mhm.
was because it was a lot of introspection on the do I make a deal with the devil? Do I sell my soul to rock and roll? And this
Yes.
again, it's a slasher. It's a lot of fun. We haven't seen a whole lot of slashers in comics lately, unless you're reading Maniac of New York from Aftershock.
It's so
Um,
good.
but it's refreshing to see this genre tackled not only by female characters but a female writer.
Now,
Um,
now, Amy. Now, sorry, I can't
yeah,
think off the top of my head. How many issues is Silver Coin running for?
I believe it's 4.
Oh, eh,
Let me actually check really quick who the next writer is. I will pull up my issue real fast.
I thought it was Lemire.
I know Lemire is in there.
He's
He
in
might
there,
be
right?
he might be the next one. It's
Because my
Ed Brisson is next with Death
Brisson.
Rattle, which is
Right.
after a
Okay.
home invasion goes bad, the mysterious coin helps its new owners outrun the law, but it's leading them down a path much darker. So Ed Brisson is next, and then
Nice.
Jeff Lemire will finish it off. And I don't remember what genre his horror story is, but the next one is home invasion. So if you're into that kind of stuff, keep an eye out. But Silver Coin #2, don't sleep on it just because it's a #2 issue. It is
Yeah.
an anthology. It is a standalone. You can dive right in, and I highly, highly recommend you do.
All right. Do it. Comes right from the hot off the Comics Hall presses. Everyone, go. You should be reading Silver Coin. It's really good.
But speaking of things that we anticipate, things that we love, we have our Holler at the Hall segment,
Yes.
which of course we ask you guys a question. You can answer it in the Let Your Geek Side Show Facebook group, on our social media, or in the local comics society, which is our own secret organization of comic book geeks who just want to talk variant covers and new releases and all that good stuff. So this week we asked you guys, what is your most anticipated new comic book of the summer? We've got solicitations up through July. We got a lot of stuff coming, even more events. So we asked you guys, and you answered.
All right, so starting off, Charles Tett said, my most anticipated release is Sinister Wars. It's the Spider-Man event that's coming very, very shortly for everyone who may not know. He continues to say, I've always been drawn more towards the villains, and this series looks like it's going to be jam-packed with some of the best bad guys. Agreed.
I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
with a title like Sinister, you know you're in for some fun.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Wershborn says, as always, I'm excited for the X books. With the Hellfire Gala, we have Planet Sized X-Men #1 and a new X-Men volume with a new team and a newer mission. Then comes the Trial of Magneto. And Andrew Wershborn adds, I have a theory that Mystique is going to frame Magneto for murder at the gala because they won't resurrect Destiny. I'll be very excited to see if that plays out the way that you think, my friend.
If it does play out that way, us four, including Rob, we're all gonna play the lottery. That's what's gonna happen next.
We'll call you.
Kenneth Bunon says, lastly, Booster and Beetle together again. Dan Jurgens and Ryan Suk are the creative team. That
Nice.
is, of course, Blue and Gold, which is the new book
Not
that's
the
coming.
X-Men.
Not the X-Men, no. Which is coming, I believe, in like the end of July, which I'm very excited for. I'm huge Booster Gold fan. I don't know why, but I've always really loved Booster Gold, and I've always wished that he would get more page time,
Mhm.
not screen. What's the comic book version of screen time?
I guess it would be page time.
Page time, everyone. So yeah, I've always wished that we could get more Booster Gold. So here we go, and they've got such a cool, fun. Booster and Beetle have such a fun relationship too.
Awesome. Well, Paul, aside from that, is there a title that you're most excited about in the next couple months?
Yes, and I hope I'm not stealing your answer, but it's James Tynion the Fourth's the Nice House on the Lake. Man,
Nice.
I love everything JT4 is doing right now, and I am absolutely like in love with that particular like group.
Mhm.
It's weird. It's like that group horror dynamic. Like it's just the whole book seems really cool, and
I
I'm
think they
really
just
stoked
broke
for that.
100,000 pre-orders on that as
They sure
well,
did.
which is pretty big.
I'm on that train, baby.
You're all of those pre-orders, and
I'm all of
I'm
them.
also one of them. Rob, would you like to chime in as well before we wrap this show up? I was gonna say wrap this show on the road, but that's not how that goes.
Sure. I mean, honestly, the thing that I'm most excited for going forward is just more silver coin. I'm
Oh,
I'm so
so
hooked
good.
now. The first issue I've really liked, and this second one, I'm gonna be a
Good.
fan. I just need all of them now.
I'm hoping it goes the way of Haha, and maybe Image goes, wonder if we could get a few more out of Michael Walsh and do a few more issues,
Yes,
because it has
yes,
staying
please.
potential.
Yes, please.
Yes, please,
What
Michael
about you,
Walsh.
AB?
I'm going to say Barbaric from Vault Comics. Now, I've had the
Oh,
privilege of previewing the first 2 issues, and this one is the real deal. This is a sword and sorcery story from Vault coming up this summer. I believe it's in June. You can pre-order now. It's going to be by Michael
nice.
Morrissey and Nathan Gooden. And it is, if you're a fan of Jason Aaron's stuff, if you're a fan of Conan and Thor and that kind of drunken warrior, you're going to want to check that one out, because it's about a man named Owen the Barbarian who has been cursed to only do good deeds for the rest of his life. And he's a big, burly. He looks like Blanca from Street Fighter. He's got the big orange
Oh,
hair. He's like this
That's
big
awesome.
angry dude, and he is bound to a talking axe that gets blood drunk. And the axe tells him who has to be killed, and the compass. I mean the axe has a weird moral compass as well. So he's maybe not the best judge of character, but if he decides that someone is bad and they deserve to die, Owen has to kill them, and he's not allowed to kill anybody else if the axe doesn't tell him to. And also,
oh,
no one else can hear the axe talking. So
of
it is the
course.
perfect setup for sword, sorcery,
And
and
I'm
silliness.
just warning everyone now. There will be a plethora of Dave the Barbarian references once we get to that comic. I'm just warning everyone now.
Huge but a wimp. But no, I've read the first 2 issues, and it is so much fun. And there's a great female character in it that I don't want to spoil, but she's a very interesting foil to this whole situation with Owen and his cursed axe.
Speaking of people that talk to their weapons like katana, right?
And the axe's name is just Axe, so
Oh, nice.
they really stretched the brain on that one. No, it's
Good for
it's
them.
a fantastic new entry from Vault, and again, I'm loving everything that Vault does.
Yeah, they
So
have not missed. So
pre-order that one as well,
Go do it.
please, and thank you. All right, guys. That does it for this week's show. I mean, it
Did
feels
it.
good to be back to normal. We've got a couple more normal shows. Who knows when the next time we're going to go off the rails is going to be. But next week we'll be back on May 19th with all the new comic books as well for you guys. But before then, we do have one more Holler at the Hall question for you. So sit on it, think on it. Check us out in Facebook, on our social at the Comics Hall, on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Again, local comic society, let your geek sideshow, and you can always email us at thecomicshall@sideshow.com. We want to know, what is your favorite big 2 crossover event of all the crossover events they've done? And I'm not specifically Marvel crosses over with DC, but there have been a couple of those, so you can choose one of those. But where we've got Heroes Reborn going on right now, and we're going to have Extreme Carnage coming out later, and we've just had we've got Future State spinning
Right.
off an Infinite Frontier. What is your favorite big 2 event? I know we all get a little bit of event fatigue sometimes, but there are some real gems out there. So start thinking,
Okay.
get your responses. We'll ask you guys in our groups, and we look forward to hearing your responses.
Nice.
I already know which one mine is, but I'm sure everybody already knows, so I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
We'll save it for next time. But that's all we've got for Wednesday, May 12th. It is a great
Yeah.
week. Hopefully, you're able to go out, pick up some books, find some new stuff. There is wonder to be found on your shelves this and every week.
Oh, you need that on a bookmark. There is wonder on your shelves.
Can you tell my mom used to be a librarian?
Oh yeah.
That's where I get it. But enough of that. Thank you guys so much for joining us
Thank you,
this week. We'll
guys.
catch you next time. As always, I'm Amy,
And I'm Paul.
and this has been the Comics Hall. We'll see you next time.
Bye everyone.